This is the Nomad Air Internet backpack, and it delivers internet faster to my house than this Starlink satellite. And it doesn't even need to be outside. These are two different tools that accomplish the same task of spawning a Wi-Fi network with broadband speeds and unlimited data in the middle of nowhere. But they do it in very different ways. The Nomad Air also has an Ethernet port if you prefer to use it that way. It's also got an obviously much smaller and more portable form factor. And this is everything you need to get going with the Starlink satellite if you're on the go. I've got a power station, wireless router that it comes with. We've got the satellite dish and some cable. Starlink uses a bunch of satellites, so you can usually get internet with Starlink wherever you have a clear view of the sky. And most people watching this video probably already know that. That also means that whenever you want to use it though, you need to set up the satellite dish first. I thought this seemed like no problem at all because it does come with this nice little stand and it's not hard to set up. But in reality, the box for Starlink isn't exactly small. And if you're taking it with you in your car on a trip, it can take a lot of valuable space really quickly. You also need some kind of power source. So if you have a car that has an AC outlet, cool. I have a lot of power stations. I'm using the Anker Solix C1000. And if you want to see my review of this, oh, I didn't like that very much. There's a link to that in the description of this video too. And if you're taking this kit with you camping, you might also need an extension cord if you're going to be surrounded by lots of trees. So you'll need to take the satellite somewhere it has a clear view of the sky. The first time I set up the Starlink in my backyard, it took me just over an hour of troubleshooting. I needed an already existing connection to the internet to sign up for Starlink, and it took several reboots and a firmware update just before I could acquire an internet signal for the first time. And if you have really bad weather, your service might become spotty. It was okay for me with just some light rain, but I've read that other people have had issues with just looming storm clouds. The Nomad Air instead uses cell towers and it operates on the latest C-band of 5G using Verizon's network. It makes it both very fast and have a very far reach. The people at Nomad have shared in their experience it usually reaches twice as far as normal cell signals. Anecdotally, just last year, I used to personally have Verizon as my cell provider, and I had 0 or 1 bars most of the time in my house. I'm now on T-Mobile, and I still have 0 bars here, so unless my phone is connected to Wi-Fi, my phone won't work. My house is just in like a really poor cell signal area, so I was already pretty doubtful when it got here that Nomad Air would even really work for me. And to power it, it has its own little power brick, and this is supposed to run it for up to a week. And the whole kit just fits in this nice little backpack. And to turn it on, you just hit this button, then give it a minute, and then it connects. The Nomad arrived all configured already. All I had to do was hit that button, and then I've got fast internet. It also came with a few cards that have the instructions for my little Wi-Fi network. Originally, I started looking into these things because I just really like to know which redundancies are the most effective in the event that my home internet goes down. And I still need to make a phone call. Because as I shared already, I have no service here. There's other reasons too, but that's the most important to me. But also this comparison let me learn about which option I might try if I ever actually do buy a remote property and I can't get fast fiber internet or something, or if I just want to take a trip somewhere that won't otherwise be connected already. Nomad did sponsor this video, and all they asked for in return is an honest review. So I used the money from this sponsorship to buy the Starlink and subscribe to the service for this video. During my due diligence though, I found that Nomad came up on some Google searches with some like really concerning recent history about their CEO and how Nomad was sued in Texas for misrepresenting that they had relationships with wireless carriers and that they were allegedly reselling iPad or tablet internet plans against the carrier's terms, and there was like an investigative video grilling the former life of their CEO. I'm just paraphrasing right now, and I'm not a lawyer, but you get the point. I was a little concerned about their legitimacy. I did a bit more research, and I found that the guy that was causing all these issues has either stepped down or was removed. They now have a new CEO, and I haven't seen any negative press or bad news about Nomad Internet since this whole thing happened. This all happened like in the past few months. So from my perspective, it seems like they were cleaning out their closet and are now doing their best to be a legitimate company with a good product. But I didn't want to work with them on a sponsored video at the cost of my own reputation without something documented saying that they were legitimate. So I asked them specifically if they could give me some kind of proof that they had a relationship in good standing with Verizon, which I could then share with you guys. Nomad connected me directly with one of the managing partners of Verizon, who confirmed that they meet with Nomad's CEO on a weekly basis and that Nomad is an authorized reseller of Verizon's connectivity through a program that lets them sell their own white labeled solutions. So that's good enough for me. And the other thing that Nomad asked me in this video is just to not use anyone's names. And I can respect that. not everyone is comfortable with the attention that social media can bring. And I did double check and verify that the managing partner of Verizon that they connected me with was actually a managing partner of Verizon. Since we're talking about Nomad's CEO, we might as well also talk a little bit about Starlink's CEO, who dabbles in global politics. And I'm still waiting on my Cybertruck, so I don't think there's too much that needs to be said there. So we're going to run some speed tests with the Nomad Internet now. Right now we're in my studio. There's a lot of electronics and lights around me and wireless signals. Run the test and see what we get. So it looks like it jumped up to 300 and then throttles down to about 200. We should be expecting 200 megabits per second. And in the studio, we are getting 18 to 20 megabits per second upload. All right, we're outside now. Let's run this test, which is what I assume is ideal conditions for this thing. Can you see my phone? There we go. Getting 200 megabits per second roughly. It's pretty consistent. It looks like upload is about 30. I usually see the upload at 30 megabits per second whenever it's in its most ideal conditions. And if the ideal conditions at your house were far away from where you actually wanted to use it, you do have a LAN port here. So you can plug in another router or system to this to extend that internet signal to other parts of your house where you need it. I noticed that the built-in Wi-Fi signal of the Nomad isn't super great, so it doesn't reach through walls very well. So I would connect it to either another router or something if I was going to use it like that. And so at least at my house, ideal conditions is upstairs and close to a window. And of course, because I was a Verizon customer for a couple of years, we're going to drive to a couple of known dead zones that I've experienced. So if the Nomad Air has twice the range of a regular cell signal, I should absolutely be able to connect with it. Dead zone number 1. We've got the Nomad connected. Let's run our speed test. When I had Verizon at this spot, I would have 0 service every time I drove by. It's working just fine. We're still in the dead zone. Just browsing some TikToks. Not doing that while driving, of course. All right, we've arrived at Verizon dead zone number 2. Let's give it a test. 4 down and 11 up. Still fast enough to do some TikTok browsing. There's a tiny little bit of delay, but most of the videos load pretty much within a second or less. So it looks like it works in both of the known Verizon dead zones in my town. And I didn't bring Starlink along for this adventure because setting up a satellite dish and then filming it next to an elementary school and a park seems like just a really bad idea in general. Plus the results would be roughly the same as what I'm getting at my house anyways. I've noticed generally more consistent and faster speeds during sunshine with blue skies using Starlink. That said, Starlink does have its own set of advantages too. I was curious, so I asked Nomad if their unit would work on a cruise ship, and this is where I got the response that typically the Nomad Internet has twice the range of a normal cell signal, so probably it won't work on a cruise ship or on the open ocean. Also, it's limited to use in the United States only. Starlink, on the other hand, will work anywhere in the world as long as you have that clear view of the sky, and as long as you're paying for the right plan. I mean, I don't know. If you've done that, let me know. And there's a few places on land in the US where Nomad still won't work, but Starlink would. Though it should be noted that Nomad does specifically label this as a tool for use in rural communities, off-grid van life and RVs, and I've shown you that it works really well at my own house with no service, and in the poor service areas in my town. Thankfully though, you can pause the billing on both Starlink and Nomad without incurring any fees, and no contracts are needed, but just like Starlink, Nomad also requires you to buy their equipment first. But this is just month to month with no credit checks or anything. And if it doesn't actually work for you, you can just return it. On a positive note, Nomad does give you a way to lower your monthly bill pretty significantly. The fast plan, which is 200 megabits per second, the one I have, plus the travel rider, it's $140 a month, or $120 a month if you choose not to use the option that lets you travel with it. You can then save $50 a month on your bill by inviting 5 people who also sign up for Nomad Internet. Each one of those 5 members reduces your bill by $10 every month. The hardware cost is about the same as Starlink depending on what you get. If you only need the modem and you don't need the power supply in the backpack, it's just $400, but if you get it with the power supply and backpack, it's $800 for the kit. And Starlink's satellite is around $600 for the standard one. If you already have means to power the modem and you just plan on leaving it in one place, then you really don't need the whole backpack and battery thing. So even if they both worked exactly the same at my house, I would still strongly be leaning towards Nomad because of its more convenient form factor and power source. And I don't need to set up a satellite and calibrate it, and it's immune to weather conditions. But but in this case, it's actually faster than the Starlink in my house, and 3 or 4 times faster when you're considering the upload speed. I also noticed less interruptions and less lag spikes when trying to play games on the internet. There's literally no benefit for me personally to use Starlink, which, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, my main purpose is to have some kind of reliable redundancy to my main internet connection. It's also way easier to take with me on the go and also allows me to get service in a moving vehicle. Starlink might be your only option in some cases, but I feel pretty confident in saying that for 95% of people, Nomad Internet is probably a better option. It's an excellent product, and if you want your own Nomad Air, there's a 10% discounted link in the description of this video. And if you're into this stuff, make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching. Peace.